And welcome back. I am the database guy. I hope you are well. And we're really progressing here. We're into queries, our video number 2 on that subject. I don't know how many we'll have on queries. It really does depend upon how much we need. And we have really, at this point, what's going to happen is after queries, I'm going to show you how to connect the data. In other words, how to uh, take your data in one database file and connect it with another. We kind of showed you this, or I did, early on. Um, I'm not going to show it with code, but I'm going to give you an understanding that it's very important, number one, because you have to be able to connect uh, to your backend, which is going to be storing your data, and you're going to have to ensure that there's data integrity. It's an extremely important part of database work and developing. So why even bother with that? I mean, if I showed this to you, well, I want to really go through it in its entirety, and even show you an example. I will not show you from that example the coding yet. We're not at VBA yet. That one's going to take some time. And but I need to address that when we get to connect part 2 after VBA. That's where the coding and everything comes in to auto connect when you open up the database. It's really going to be neat. But anyway, we're in queries today. And we started with A, B, C, and D. We go back to our database, as you can see here. The select query was this one here. Okay. Just basically, you're seeing two tables, so it's extracting data from one table and bringing it into a view, if you will. That's just a select query. If we click on it again, we're going to see all of our authors here. And if we go um, in design view, whoops, let me go into home rather, I'm sorry. Into design view, you're going to see what we had seen before, but the sequel on this one, the select and the from statements, you're selecting basically two fields from a table. And again, if I put the authors in ascending order, what is unusual about that one is I'm not seeing ascending, but if I do it in descending order, I will see D, E, S, C. And as mentioned earlier, you could add ASC, but it's not needed. When you run that in datasheet view, now everybody's in order. I'm not going to save this. Well, it did save it, I think. Let's see. No, it didn't save it. Okay. In any event, that was the select query. And then, of course, we went over to the make table query, which you see right here. And basically, it's creating a table with an exclamation point as its icon. When you click it, and we stated on this one here that you would create data in a table that doesn't exist, or it may exist for that matter. And if you do, if the table does exist, it will wipe the data from it in order to create or add the data to that table. If it doesn't exist, it will create it. So it has a little nuance in that anything that was already in that table, if it exists, will be wiped. Usually this is used, as I say, in terms of as a developer, in terms of managing data to set it up for the database. You don't generally have these running in an application. Typically, you might, for example, my make table could be a temp table, and each time a user wants to import data, I could make the table, set it up, all right, as I wish to have it. But here's the catch on that. Usually with a make table, you're putting data into it. So I don't like doing that. What I do is I create my temp table and I leave it alone. It's empty. And then I use the next query, which we learned about, the append query, which appends data to that temp table or any other table for that matter. Now, what we learned about that one was that we appended to the bottom, whatever the last row of data was, it was after that. So if we had 4 rows of data and we were appending 7, we start at row 5. Now, If there is no data, obviously it's going to just append the data to the table in the case of a temp table. And then you're going to utilize that data. Well, let me take a step back. You would take data, you would append it to a temp table, and then you might work on it or do something with the update query, which we saw down here, right? And the update query, we had the pencil mark and the question mark, so we might take that data and modify it, and so on. Now, when I do it, when I do my work as a developer, what I do is, if I want someone to create a record, I have them create the record, and then what I have them do is create it in the temp table, one or multiple in the temp table. And so what I'm trying to do here is to keep people from monkeying around with the main tables. So when you create data, it goes in the temp table. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it and wipe it and delete it. We're going to learn about that today. Or if you do want it, you can append it to the main table. And you do it once. Now, word of caution. On any kind of data created, there's going to be a check, usually to see that that data, and this is prior, it's a validation, usually prior to adding that table to the temp table. So for example, if I am looking at my books database here, right, and I want to add a book title, I'm going to check my books table to see if that title exists. If it does, I'm going to tell my user, sorry, it already exists. A publisher is not an issue. Publisher probably will exist, and if it doesn't exist, that's another issue. We can have the user create that publisher. We're going to see how that works too, but you've got to tie in VBA code to that. What else? For authors, it's kind of the same thing. If an author exists already, sorry, you can't add that author, and so on. So you see here what I'm doing is I'm using the graphic user interface to validate data before it goes in to my temp table. If the data is okay, it goes into my temp table. Everybody's happy with that, okay? And as I stated in my previous video, there are ways of appending multiple pieces of data to a table. There's nothing wrong with that, or you can do it one at a time. All right, so now what would then happen would be the data in the temp table, whether it's 1 or 10, you would run an append query and append it, and you've already validated it to the main table, meaning that there's not going to be an issue with it. And when you append it, as I stated earlier before, I want to just look at that one more time to reinforce that concept, is, excuse me, looking at authors, for example, it's using an auto number, an auto-generated number. So I just have to append the data. It'll create the next numbers in sequence. And we saw that here with 6, 7, 8, and 9. I just had it append these names, and it created those. And to further add to it under books, here's the trick here. Now here, as I said before, you're not just going to validate the title, you're going to also validate the ISBN to make sure it hasn't been used. And if it has, you're going to warn the user saying, sorry, that exists. You're going to blank out the cell. Please enter another ISBN. And the same goes for title. Year, I don't think there's an issue with year worrying about the year being replicated because it's going to be replicated. You might see the same year twice or 3 times or 10 times. Publisher, you're going to have the user select that and so on. All right. So what is our next type of query? That brings us to the delete query. Well, let's have a little discussion on deleting data. We never want to delete data if at all possible. Many people now who are listening to this who are here with me, and I hope you've joined. And by the way, like and subscribe. I keep forgetting to say that as often. This is all free for you. But anyway, why would you not want to delete data? Well, once you do, it's gone forever. Okay. You can't get it back. You can't even do a control undo. It won't even allow that to happen. And so, and when you delete data as well, if you were to delete an author, for example, remember we had that relationship? Let's go back to our database and take a look at that. Under our database tools, again, our relationship. So if you delete an author, for example, here, it's going to delete all the records that are in the book's authors as well, and they will go. And it won't delete, of course, the books. But let's just see what happens here. Um, no, we're not going to run the append. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong thing here. Let's see how it'll work just to show you. So I have an author here. I have, let's see, let me pick up one here. That's not going to make a whole. Let's see. Poe's got 2. I want somebody with 1. All right. We're going to go to Hermann Hesse, author of Steppenwolf. We're going to delete that. It's going to tell me with related records. We're going to go and it's gone. Okay, so let's go and look at table books authors. Obviously, we're missing one there. And let's see if Steppenwolf is gone. No, Steppenwolf is still there, but there's no author connected to it. So my point to telling you this is, here, unlike publishers, where if I delete a publisher here, I'm going to wipe out every single book under that publisher. You saw that one. For authors, I'm going to wipe out everything here in this table, table book authors, but I'm going to leave the books. Now, talking about deleting data, that's interesting because we're dealing with a many-to-many. If we had dealt with a many-to-one, if we had only one author per book, when I deleted the author, I would delete all the books of that author. Here I have not done so. And so, see if I can open up my author's book again. There it is. We're going to put in Hermann Hesse. And remember, oh boy, sorry. We are not going to see number 2 ever again. Unless I, of course, do a compact and repair. But even if I did here, I want to show you that. I don't think it's going to matter. So let me do a compact and repair and prove to you that 2 will not come back because it's already superseded. Compact and repair, we go to authors and let's see what happens. No, it won't, see. As I said, it will only come back to if you're at that record, right? So if I had only Herman Melville, I could put in Hesse. Now, the ISBN for this particular one, I'm going to enter it manually. You wouldn't do that, but we're going to put it in here. And enter that, and we're good. So now, going to my query and going to my query books, I'm going to see Hesse, or I should see him, under Steppenwolf. And let's see, he's publisher 10. All right, I don't have it translating the name of the ID of the publisher to the name of the author of the book. So I don't have it translating the number to the actual text, which you would actually do. and you'll see that in action when we get to forms. So, but if I look at book sub here, I'm going to see that, let's see, Steppenwolf is Hermann Hesse. Here I'm connecting it, all right, and it's publisher 1. So, in any event, what happened with the delete there of data is that I wiped out, we're going to go back to my relationships, I wiped out the book's author's entry because I can do that. I take all the entries that link Hermann Hesse to a book and I delete it. But the books, as you saw, don't go anywhere because this connection here is a many-to-one. We really don't know from here what books were connected. We know what books were connected to it, but we've wiped out the author entry. And so once we wipe out the author entry, we're wiping out the book entry as well, as we saw. Now, what if I were to have this differently, where I had a one-to-many from the book's authors to the books, and I had a foreign key in here for author? It wouldn't work because you're basically going to create another primary key, and you're going to link it, and the ISBN would not connect to the books. Instead, the primary key would, and that's not something you want to do. Now, if I delete a book from here, let's see what happens here. We're going to do that now. Table books. I'm just showing you some delete ideas. Let's go to Steppenwolf once again. And it's going to give me, you're about to delete a row, and you just did. So now what I'm going to look at the authors and see if Hesse is there, and he is. And let's see, I'm going to go to books, and obviously we got rid of Steppenwolf. Let's go to the authors table, and let's open up where Hesse is. Actually, we can't. Go to my relationships, and they're still there, of course. But let's go to, oh, this is query. I'm sorry, this is query. I'm in the wrong place. So you go to authors, and we go to Hesse, and we see there's no ISBN there because we've deleted the book. We look at books, and as we can see here, Steppenwolf is gone. If we open this up, we have no author tied to Steppenwolf, all right? So we see there's no entry in the book's authors table. So when we come back to our relationships, going on this way when we delete data, we're wiping out the entry here based upon the book. Here, I'm sorry, in the books table, we're wiping out the entry in the book's authors table based upon the book, but here we wiped it out based upon the author. And as you can see, with deleting data, you are going to, in a good database like this one, you're only going to wipe out entries related to other entries. And so, as I say, if you delete an author, the author's book entries go, and so now I don't know what book the author is an author of. I can reconnect it very easily. And on this other side, if I wipe out the book, as you just saw, then I wipe out the ISBN entry as well as the author entry, and I don't know what author it's connected to, so it goes back the other way. So we're going to come back to books here, and let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, we're going to go 1, 2, 4, 1, ABC. We're going to go Steppenwolf. We're going to put in 1888, no, 1930. I'm sorry, I think it was 1930 I had in there. And we're going to bring 10 in. Now, if I tried 11, by the way, or 110, whatever that number was, it probably wouldn't let me save the record. And let's see. Here. Oh, publisher, I'm sorry, publisher, not author. Hello. Publisher, let's try one. Do we have publisher one? How many publishers we have? We got 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we don't have a 1. So again, that won't work. Let's do 5. Okay, 5. It'll take 5. Any other number, as you noticed, you couldn't save it if you wanted to. It's not giving you the warning either. So then under here, the author will be 10. We know that Hess is 10. Gonna be there. And I'm doing this based upon memory. We go back to our query again here. So under query authors, why isn't that coming up? Okay, book sub is coming up. I see books is coming up, good. And I don't know why authors isn't, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, didn't want to pop up initially. And Hess is there. And as we're seeing in books, we're seeing Steppenwolf is there. And whoa, we're gonna correct this in here because we can. There we go, 1930. All right, and authors 10, and we're going to go back over here to our book sub, and there we see it. So I'm just doing some impact of deleting manually to show that to you. So just to sum up on this, now we're going to programmatically do this with a query. Not really programmatically, but using a query. Now programmatically would mean VBA code connected to a query. So we delete an author, we delete the entry from books authors, and so we have no author anymore. We have no book author entries, and so we have a book that we cannot connect to an author. We go the other way around. We delete a book, and we delete the book author's entry, so we have no book anymore, but we have an author. So we have no book to connect the author with. So in one instance, you have no book to connect the author with. In the other instance, you have no author to connect the book to. Is this a disconnect of data? No. I could have an entry without that, and it wouldn't impact anything. I'm not orphaning data. All right. Let's look at it on the publisher side. If I delete a publisher, every single book will go with it. I have to have that. I can't orphan the data. If I delete a book, on the other hand, I'm just deleting one relationship to the publisher. So if I have 4 books that are published by a publisher, let me look at my table for a minute to see which ones are in that. We're going to go to our publishers table, and we're going to look here and see 2 here. We have 2 here. We have 2 here, and we have 1 here. All right. So if I were to delete publisher number 2, the Scarlet Letter and Nicholas Nickleby would get wiped out, right? If we open that up for a minute, let's open this up for a minute as well. We're going to see the authors that are linked to that as well. And again, if I were doing this in a final form where you are translating those IDs to actual names, you would see that information in your form as well. So again, here I would delete all books related to publisher number 2 because I don't want to orphan data. That's for normalization. Okay, now let's get into the delete query. I know I've gone through the manual deletion to get you to an understanding of that you should know that you should never delete data ever from a main table or any other table because it's gone for good. What you can do on a temp table, a worksheet table that I call it sometimes, obviously you can delete data and clean that out too because it's only a worksheet. It's only something the end user is going to use to collect information before they process it for good. Where else could you use a delete table or delete query? I'm sorry, or delete data from in that sense. I would say if you are going to not append data and it's in my temp table, I could then delete the data. All right, that's data that, let's say I'm importing data and I have a client just doing that right now. Data goes into a temp table. The user says, no, you know what, I don't want to import this. It will delete the data from that table. Okay, let us go and create. And what we're going to do here, let's get a little interesting on this one. We're going to go to our query design. I never liked the wizard. Here we go. And we're going to hit our delete query on this one. And we're going to take a table. Let us take our test table. And so on this one here, for example, okay, there are 2 ways to really approach this. Okay, I can select every single row if I choose. And if you have a lot of, every field. And if you have a lot of fields, that becomes a challenge. It really does. But there's a better way to actually do it. And we're going to show you that way right now. Come on. There we go. We're going to select this wildcard at the top. What that says is take the fields from query test 2 and we're wildcarding it, so we're saying take every field from table query test and delete it. And we're gonna, and when you, if you do that, if I were to run this right now, everything in here would get wiped out. Everything, right? So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna control copy this to save it into my memory. I'm gonna save the query and go to query design. Let's see. Okay. So we can, let's go to datasheet view. will let me. Oh, I haven't saved it yet. Sorry about that. So let's save it as, we're going to call this one query delete test. So now if I come over to here to my datasheet view, I'm going to see 4 entries here that it's going to delete. Now, you'll notice here, it's taking these from query test, all right? We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. Oh, come on. Doesn't want to go. All right, you see, doesn't want to go. Let's close that and let's create it again. Giving me a little bit of a hiccup here. And let's go bring table test in here and here, and save as query. We'll call it test books. All right. Now should. There we go. I didn't know why it showed only 4. Now it's showing everything, and it may have been something that I had in there. Let's go back to design view. Okay. Let's go here again. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, just to convince you it's the same, I'm going to wipe this out, and let's add all 4 of these in. This is more laborious, and you don't have to do it this way. Okay. Now let's go to our datasheet view, and you can see all of them are there. All right. Did I add in? Oh, I think I missed one. Yeah. The address, the city, state, and zip. Okay. And coming into here again to our datasheet. It won't let me see datasheet view now. Okay, there it is. Don't know why it did that. So this here is a bit complicated to do, selecting every single row, right? Every single, rather, field, and getting every row that way. Instead, we're going to do it the way I showed you before. View, data sheet view. I think I have to, it saves it once. That's what it's doing. So let me go back and just show you. Let me add a row and delete one. And then I will save it. That's what you need to do each time, because I think that's what's happening. It's saving it, if I recall. Nope, doesn't like it. Doesn't like it. I don't know why it's taking so long to run it, but all right. So in any event, you see this here. Now, you'd be wiping everything out, and that probably isn't something you want to do. All right, probably isn't something you want to do. So we're going to add something to this. So if I look at this, yeah, it doesn't like to bring it up initially for some reason. Let's see. All right, we can do it by publisher rather than by specifically by title. If we delete the publisher, by the way, from this table, there's no impact to our main table. There's no relationship, by the way. It's very different. There's no relationship, by the way. And I'm going to bring this one in to show you. There's no relationship between test and anything else. So deleting the data from here is not going to delete anything from the other tables, because it's a test table, right? So we're going to go into design view, and we're going to add a publisher, and the criteria is pub 2. And you notice it has a where statement, because the where statement, let's save it, the where statement indicates that we're not deleting anything, but this is a criteria. And now you see here, wow, It's now picked up only publisher 2 data. Okay. If I wanted Nicholas Nickleby, I would have 2 entries, or the Scarlet Letter, or whatever it might be. Okay. If I wanted things by author 5, and you can see that here, let's go back into here for a minute and take out our where statement, save it. If I wanted, say, a particular author here, 5, okay, I could use that too. And pick up my author ID and just put a 5 in there. Now, here I don't have to have it in quotes because it's a numerical value for criteria. We're going to get into the criteria, all aspects of the criteria. We're going to go to our data sheet view, and there you see both entries there for Nicholas Nickleby. So we're going to get rid of this for a moment. And I want to just do one more thing here to show you just some of the, yep, doesn't like it. There it goes. We're going to go with title this time. And remember we used a like. Actually, I'm going to do it from here, design view. Under title, let's see. And we're going to use here on our criteria, like meaning it should look like that. We're going to put a wildcard in. I'm sorry, a quotation marks, meaning text. First a wildcard and the, and another wildcard. So here we're looking for anything with the in it. Anything with the in it. We'll save that for a minute. We will go to our data sheet view, and we're going to have to hit it again. And there you have it. So the Scarlet Letter, the Pit and the Pendulum, and the Raven, all of those entries, as you can see, it picked up. Now you may ask, why does it sort of hesitate when you want to go into, did I save it? I'm sure I did. Let me go to queries. Yeah, I did. So design and design. All right, so yes, here it is. Actually, this particular one here I can get rid of. I don't need it. I had 2 of them. And by the way, if you're looking now at the icon, it is an X with uh, a exclamation point, meaning it's a warning, sort of, you're going to get rid or X out data, if you will. And so if I come back here, let's see if it'll go into it without giving me a problem. And it kind of hiccups a little bit. Let's see why. Don't know. Going into SQL view, we see here delete now is the keyword. Delete wildcard table test, all the fields that are in table test. And also source out table test field title and delete all those fields from table test, but where table test title, field title is like the. And let's see if it'll even come into our data sheet view. It does. I don't know what's going on. Honestly, could be a slight hiccup that doesn't like making the change from here. Let's try it one more time. No, doesn't like making the change from there for some reason, and even from here. Let's see. So, all right, a little bit of a hiccup. I don't know what the reason is for it. Let's see under table names here. All right. So we have nothing under properties under our property sheet here. The table names can show or not show the table names. It may have something to do with this wildcard here on this one. Yeah, I'm not able to show it to you now. Oh, now it came back up for some magical reason. All right, so let's see what happens. So we should be getting rid of, and down here we have 8, 1 of 8 records. So let's see what happens. We had 14, so if we run this, it's going to give you a warning. You're going to run a delete query to modify data in your table. You're going to delete 8 rows, and you just run it. So we go back to our table test. That's table test 2. We should have 6 remaining. And it's not coming up. I think something's going on. Let me close the database down and bring it right back up for you. Hold on a minute. I think it's something with the database itself. An unusual little quirk in it. Okay, here it is. I don't know what it was. It could be an unusual little quirk with it. And as you see, 6 of them are remaining and nothing with the is present. Let's go back to, I think it was some sort of an error that's causing it to. Now here, for example, if I try to go into datasheet view, you're going to find nothing is going to be there. Remember I said that if it can't find anything, it won't delete anything. So if you were to run this one here, it's going to say 0 rows. No, we don't want to run that. Okay, now it's flipping around. Could have been something, a little error it encountered. But anyway, and the delete query we have here is that once you delete the data, it's no longer around, especially with the criteria to delete it again. Now, it's the same thing. Whoops, sorry. It would be the same thing here if I didn't have this in here. Okay, now if I go to my data sheet here, I'm going to delete what's left. All right, and I'm going to do that right now. I've got 6 rows to go. So we're going to run it. All right, now that table should be empty. And indeed it is. So now what I'm trying to emphasize here is that this particular kind of a delete query would be used to wipe out the temp table. So in other words, if it sees data, it will delete it. If it doesn't see any data, it will do nothing. That's what happens when you get to this point. And once you delete all the data, you can't delete it again. All right, think about it. If I wipe out data from my main table, I'll have nothing to wipe out after that. So I would keep deleting or the delete query local to temporary tables, things that you're going to, while you're in the process before the user commits to final changes, that there may be a need to delete data from your main tables, your actual backend. But I would advise it's much better to archive that data using an append query to another database, and you can do that too. If you remember, let's go into this for a minute. It's our append query. We right-click anywhere, and we go to query type and to append. You notice I can check the current or I can check another database. I could append data from the current, extracting it from the current into another database. All right? And that's what I would do, so I would never lose data. It's really, really important that you don't want to do that. So the delete query has a lot of uses for it. Actually, I almost forgot. Let me just come back into this for a minute and look at SQL for a minute. We talked about that. In this case, delete all the fields from table test, all those fields from table test. And if you have a criteria, the criteria is specified, okay? So in structured query language, delete is what you would use. All right, now we're gonna look at crosstab. I'm going to show you examples of union and pass-through. I'm not gonna do them because it's better to show you an example so you get to understand that one. I'm gonna try a crosstab right now, see how good I am. Crosstab is go create, query design, and that's one of our crosstab is here. We're gonna bring in, let's see, tables, see books, books authors, authors, and publishers. We don't need to worry about states. So what we're going to do here is we're going to bring in our ISBN, our title, our year, our publisher from our publishers table, and our authors from our author table. Now, you have that line called crosstab. You see the fourth line down. Right, you have field table totals, and it's a group by. Notice it's grouping by in a crosstab. It's interesting. The ISBN, we're going to bring that as our row. I hope I'm going to get this right. Our title should be our row. Our year could be our row. We're going to make our author our column. And I hope if I get this right, we're going to make our publisher our value. Now, you can have as many rows as you want. You can only have one value in one column if memory serves. Let's see what happens when we run this. Now, you can't specify a group by for that column, for the total, where a total row column is. So here, wherever I have this here, I can't specify a group by on the value. I have to do some sort of an expression. So I could use max or expression. Max will give me the maximum number. Let's see what happens now. And in fact, you can see here what's going on, right? So what it's doing here is it's taking the row, the three in the row, the ISBN title and year. It's using the author as the column, and it's checking off. So the Scarlet Letter, Publisher 2 under Herman Melville. Not true, of course. I'm just giving example data here. Moby Dick is also Melville, Publisher 1, though, right? Pit and the Pendulum is Poe, Publisher 3, as well as The Raven. Charles Dickens is Publisher 2, and Steppenwolf is Publisher 4. Now, I could reverse what I have. Go to Design View, and let's make this a value, and this the column. And we can do a group by on a column, but here we have to have a max. So what do you think is going to happen? Well, your column's obviously going to be your publisher, and it's going to put your authors where they should be. And let's see. And indeed, that is what happens. So for Publisher 1, we see all the entries there. Only one, Herman Melville. Publisher 2, we have 2. Publisher 3, we have 2. And Publisher 4, we have 1. So this is a way of creating a pivot table out of data you have. And we're going to get into this later on when we really get into how this works and examples of this. I don't think you would use a pivot table for this kind of a database. You might, but I don't think so. Could I have had my title as a column? Yeah, but wouldn't make sense. The year might be an interesting one to have as the value. That would be nice. But again, I'm not going to get into this tremendously. Let me save it. We're going to query, and we're going to call this books and CT for crosstab. I always like to put that there, as I told you. And if you look there, right here, you'll see what looks like a spreadsheet for crosstab, and that's exactly what it is. We're looking at was taking the data upwards, downwards, and it's looking at it. Now, there are ways of, and you're going to see this later on when we get into this, of not leaving blank rows, being able to specify what should be in a blank row. But right now, you don't need to know that. And the other thing, let's look at the SQL view. Transform, whoa, this is heavy. So we transform and we take the max, which is the value of the author from table authors, as we're going to call it as max of author. Okay. Now, if we look at our design view, it's still author. But what SQL is saying is because we're looking for the maximum value of the field author, we're going to call it max of author. Now that's going to be important if we ever want to get that data out from this pivot table into a report or a form, most likely a report, because you're going to see this when this query is saved, when you go to look at the fields within this query, and actually I'll show it to you in a moment from looking at another query. Max of author is going to be the field name. Then you're going to select the other fields from table books. You're going to have your join, okay, all of your join information, and you have one on the author ID and one on the ISBN and one on the publisher, and then you're going to group by the ISBN, the title, and the year, and you're going to pivot on the publisher, meaning publisher is the column. So let's go and create the query. I want to prove to you, if I bring in that particular query, what I'm going to see. All right, let's see. So, let's see here. Now you notice here that it's going to do the same thing. All right. So what happens is, actually, I take that back. It now assigns the publisher numbers, not the max of, but it's going to, now you would have to, and there's a way to do it in code, is to be able to list them out in a report or in a form, what publishers you want to see. Now, we don't have the publishers field. We now have the specific publishers that come out that were in our query here as our pivot. All right. So even though we are max of author. So under author, we're not seeing author here, right? We don't see the author here, do we? And when we run it, that's not publisher, but author. We don't see it. So what it's doing here is it's looking at the authors. And so let's go into our design view. So the authors is here and it's a max value. All right. Let's just see. It won't bring that into here. It'll bring everything but that. Because what it's doing is, when I run it, when I run this, come on. Come on. Doesn't like it. No, we don't want to do that. Let's go back and create the query again and bring in our and take all of these here. It's almost as if the publisher becomes a field. And let's run it now. Okay. We don't have the authors in here. We do. We have them embedded, rather. I'm sorry, we do have the authors, but they're embedded in the publisher fields. Which is weird, isn't it? Because you've never seen that before. How does it know? How does it even get that? If we go to SQL, it's a simple select query. And you see. So what it's doing, let me close this down. What it's doing here is essentially it is embedding, and give it a second. It is embedding the author into the publisher field. It's very strange, very, very strange, but it can be useful, all right? And as you can see, this will, if I bring it to another query and I utilize it, I've created new fields. And you may ask, well, wait a minute, what if I had 50 publishers? I'm gonna have to bring all of those in? The answer there is no. because what you can do is you can run a special type of coding in your query, and we'll get to it, where it will populate all of your publishers, or we'll see that, and we're going to see that as I show it to you. But when you run it, it's called a switch. And when you run that code, all of that publisher information will be shown without having to select every single field. All right. So that brings us to, so the crosstab, and you notice of all the queries, the crosstab is the one. It requires 3 fields. Oh, while I'm at it, let me just come back to that one for a minute, and want to show you one thing here. You should need to know about this as well. All little nuances, but hey, we're going to put address in, and I'm going to put address as a column. I don't believe it's going to work. It shouldn't, because it never does. You can only have one column. I believe if I run this, it's going to tell me, sorry, you can only have one column, okay? What if I bring this in as a value and I max it out, or min it out? Doesn't matter. Same issue. What if I bring it in as a row? Well, it's not going to be helpful as a row, because what's going to happen is it's simply going to throw that address right next to it. And I don't know, that's not really related to my books, it's related to my publishers, which is interesting. So I'm going to not save this. No, I'm going to copy this for a minute. Let's try something. We're going to call this 2. Okay, design view, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to select table pub. We're going to have the publisher name. Same thing here, pub. We're going to have the address. Here we're going to have pub again. We're going to have the city. And I'm going to go here and actually just now, I'm going to just drop this down. I'm going to get the state 2, and I'm going to drag. You can always drag this over, select it, drag. Okay, so there's our rows. Oh, I got to place my row in there as well. My row. Now, what I'm going to have here is I'm going to have, not from the publisher, but I'm going to have the book, table books, and I'm going to have the title. So now I'm going to look at my publisher data in my rows. I'm going to have my author in my value and my title as my column, and hopefully it will run, and it certainly does. So we look at Moby Dick, and we know Herman Melville wrote that. And here's the publisher. Nicholas Nickleby is Dickens, as well as Melville. I'm sorry, Dickens, Nicholas Nickleby. Steppenwolf is Herman Hesse. The Pit and the Pendulum, Poe. The Raven, Poe. And the Scarlet Letter. Obviously, it's not true. Melville didn't write the Scarlet Letter. I don't believe he did. Who did write that one? Let's find out. I'm not even remembering some of these, but I know we're kind of running late here. Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Okay, Hawthorne is on that one. So let's see if we can edit this. And it won't. Record set's not updatable. A crosstab isn't. Can't do that. We're going to save it. Let's go into query books here. And let's get this one right. Let's see. No, that's not right. Shouldn't be Melville, but let's see here. Let's go to our tables. And we'll go to authors. And we'll go to Nathaniel Hawthorne. All right. And we don't have any books under him yet. So we go to books, authors. Actually, we're going to go to books here. We're going to find Scarlet Letter is 1, 2, 3, 5. So actually, let me see here. And it's going to be 11, not 1. Okay, right. So now let us go to our second crosstab query. And you'll see Nathaniel Hawthorne is correctly in the Scarlet Letter. This may be a little bit better in that sense, but again, we can go in different ways. I wanted to show you that because what I wanted to make clear was that you could do different things with crosstab queries. Okay, and the first one, by the way, was books versus publishers and the authors within the publishers. And then the second one was publishers versus books with the author in the book, which is actually better, which makes more sense, right? It would to you and me. And again, when would you use these is a whole another question, right? Um, let me think here. Okay, so now the the union and the pass-through, I want to show you examples. I'm going to close this database here. Going to open up a client's database. You're not going to see anything interesting that you need to see, but you see here, you look right here from these icons, we have append queries, we have a crosstab, we have delete queries, we have select queries, and here is our pass-through. I'm just going to right-click on this one, go to Design View, but you're only going to see it, let's see, in SQL. There's no design view like you would have that we typically have been working with, because this structured query language is SQL Server based. You couldn't design it here. And you notice it's very different. Yeah, you have select and from and group by and inner joins and things like that, but you also have referencing these what called DBO or these tables in SQL. All right, and if I were to run it, I don't know if I'm going to get any data from this, but we'll see. Yeah, we have a connection on this issue with this for some reason, so no problem. You don't need to see it. But this is the kind of thing. Let me see if I can do it again. Yeah, it won't work. Actually, let it connect. And this is the reason why. I'm going to want to show you what a connection. Whoa. And so we got something going on here. Yeah, we're going to empty the. Let's go back in and let's try to open it. I think there's something going on with SQL Server on this one. Yeah, I can't open my connection here to show you right now. Something's going on to my client's back end. Could be a little issue she's dealing with at this time. But in any event, we'll go back to that query and show you what the pass-through looks like. It's just simply going into, actually we're in SQL view, which is the correct view to be in. Let me just check my client's database. I'm going to show you this as well quickly. We don't have a lot of time. I'm going to go into the application I was telling you about, SQL Server Management Studio. This is how you connect to your backend tables in SQL. I just want to see if I can get in, see if there's an issue with it quickly. Let's see. Let's see if it'll connect. I think I know what it is. Yeah, I think I know what this is. So let me just take off. It's probably my VPN. My guess is it is my VPN. So we're going to turn my VPN off here from my Norton and try to connect without it. There we go. That's what it was. Yeah, my IP address. Okay, so let us go back into the database and we're going to show you what it looks like. Compact and repair, watch the connection, and this is how it connects back-end tables, in this case SQL. So when I set the VPN, it changed the IP address and would not allow it to connect. It's seeing a different IP. Really interesting stuff. Any event, this is my client's dashboard. I'm going to close it right now. You don't need to see any of this. So let us go to the query, and let's go to, I guess this is one, okay. These are all pass-through queries. That's a select query. Hang on a minute. I need a pass-through. Hang on a minute. Yeah, the PTs are the pass-through. So let us pick one. Yeah. All right. So you can see it's a pass-through here at the top. Let's look at some other ones just curiously. I don't think all of them are pass-throughs, but they should be. They are pass-throughs. They are, which is good. Good news. So what happens when we run this? You'll see all the information very quickly populated. And we can only go between SQL view. There's no, as I said, there's no design view because you're not doing this within Access. In this case, it's a select and a from. Pretty straightforward. The one I had before was the check, I think the check program budget. And that one, that particular one there, you have a where statement as well within that. All right, I'm not going to get into them too far, but all of these that you see here, all of them with these little, yeah, these are all pass-throughs. And you can tell, let's see this one here, SQL. This is a pass-through as well for a union, believe it or not, a union tree view, pass view. You have a lot of stuff going on here, but this is a union, okay? And we're going to get into a union query in a minute. But let's get to the union first before we get to this one so you can understand it. Let me look at this one for a minute as well so you can see this one too. And this particular one here has your inner joins, everything you would have in Microsoft Access SQL, but it's in structured query language SQL. Whoops, sorry. So the union query, you can see right there, the icon there, the two circles connecting. So you go to design view on the union query, and again, on a union query, you're not going to see anything but SQL. It's view and SQL. So what you're doing here is you're running a select query for one, right? And you're running a union with another select. Believe it or not, I could take this and go like that. I'm going to break it up for you to see it. Notice I have two select queries. I'm selecting from programs as well as from projects. All right, the tables I'm using are table projects and table programs. In one case, I have an inner join. I'm group buying. I'm doing a group buy on the programs. And I have a where statement on the programs as well where the field act is active on that one, okay? And having the programs field active true here as well. Now, here is a caveat to your union query. These are complicated to run, or rather write, and as you can see, you got to be good in SQL, right? You're probably not going to need them a lot, but if you run this, what's going to happen is it's going to take the exact same, I'm going to show you this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 here. And as you notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so it took 17 on there. but you really have to have a matching amount of fields. In other words, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 fields here. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 fields. I have to match the number of fields. If I don't, when I go to run this, I'm going to get an error. So you see here, I couldn't have a fifth field on one, not on the other. I'm creating and the union really is a union that has no connection really to the data. Reason I'm using this particular union, by the way, and I'm not going to save it, but the reason why I'm using this particular one, I'm going to run it here as well. It's the same thing, and I could have run it either way, but I use this to populate tree view. So when I run this, okay, these here become my main nodes, okay, my main nodes, and these become my subnodes. All right, you can see here. And what I do is I'm using that ID as the ID of the main node, and it can't be the same as the ID of the subnode. So I'm going to come back to SQL one last time. So what I did is I took the prefix plus the PID, and I made that the PRID number. When I run this, one of my tables has the prefix of, in this case, I think it's 100,000. The other one does not. And so I get these numbers that are unique. All right, this is very advanced stuff, but it's not difficult to do. So caveat on this is you have to have the same number of, actually, let's not do it from the SQL. Let's do it from the regular one. From here, you have to have the same number of, oh boy, SQL, the same number of fields that you're going to join. If you don't, it's going to give you an error. So what do you use a union query for? Well, you could use that for, as I said, what I'm doing with TreeView, or maybe you want to join data for some other reason. And the pass-through, again, if I'm dealing I only use it if I'm dealing with SQL Server or SQL Express, and I need to get something quickly. The other side of that is, if I try to run that query through Access, and you can, in many instances, it will take a long time to get the data because you're running from one application into another one, and it doesn't really make sense to do that. You're wasting time. You can write the query at SQL Server query as a pass-through, go externally, and by the way, while I'm here, I want to show you one other thing to close this out, which I didn't show you. Let's go into design view on the union for a minute. You see here, property sheet tells you that you have a union query here and so on and so forth. But this is something in Access. I'm going to go through my pass-through here, which is the same query, by the way, in this way of what's getting the data from. I'm going to go to my property sheet here, and I have a connection here. Here's my ODBS connection. Even if you had this information, you couldn't connect to this database because, again, the IP address has to be allowed. So all this doesn't make any sense, but you see the password, you see the ID, you see all the information, the trusted connection. On a pass-through, you have to have this in here. So you're connecting right to it. I'm not worried that you're seeing it, even though it's proprietary, but you wouldn't be able to get there anyway. And as I just showed you, when I had my VPN on, it wouldn't let me. Okay, so in any event, that covers the main stuff on queries. I'm going to come back probably for a review of that and get into connections. I think I don't think there's any more right now to hit on queries. So again, like everything else, we're going to go back when we need to go back to it. We're going to have connecting data part 1 after this, which will be our presentation 6, video 1. So wherever you are, please like and subscribe. This is all free to you, and have a great day, evening, night, wherever you may be. Take care.